Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for the final Have Your Say video for this season, which is Global All Stars episode 12, which is the finale. So today we're going to be recapping the final episode of the season, going through the results of the Have Your Say poll, and I'll be talking about a little bit of drama to do with Nehellenia calling out Vanity Vain for some comments that she made about her. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So let's start by recapping the episode. So the queens come back into the workroom, and last week was the lip sync Lollapalooza between the eliminated queens, and I didn't do a video about it because there wasn't really much to talk about, and I do think the results of the lip syncs were pretty evident. So the final four, which is Nehellenia, Kitty, Alyssa and Queen, are talking about what the final challenge is going to be. RuPaul then comes into the workroom and says that the queens are going to be starring in the music video for the new Global All Stars anthem, Dance Like the World Is Watching. And the queens will be writing and recording their own original verses, and the queens will also be doing some dance sequences a little bit like TikTok dances. And there's also a tic-tac chat lunch between the queens and Ru and Michelle. A lot of the episode is just the queens talking amongst themselves about what they want in their verse, and then there's also the tic-tac chats between the queens and Ru and Michelle. I do find these quite interesting because I think it's a chance for the queens to really get to speak to Ru and Michelle one-on-one, because normally they only really get to see them either in the workroom when they're doing the challenges or on the main stage. And I think all of the queens had their own moments with Ru and Michelle. I don't think there was necessarily a standout moment. Although I did find that Ru and Michelle did come across as being quite genuine, I thought, which was quite nice. But I did feel like with Alyssa, Ru definitely was speaking to her in a lot more of an intense way than she was with anyone else. So I did kind of feel like there was a difference between Alyssa and the others in terms of the way Ru was treating her, which was maybe then foreshadowing how the season was going to go. The queens then record their choreo, and it's supposed to be quite simple because it's supposed to be almost like a TikTok dance trend that people can follow at home. Okay, so before we get into the dances, I'll go through the runway because that happened first. And the category was Best Drag on Earth. And the returning queens also participated in this, so it's every single queen did this runway. So first up we had Atina Leakis. And she said she is serving you French haute couture cloudy wet look. And she just wanted it to be Eleganza walking the red carpet. Then we had Miranda Lebrau. She said that she is bold because Ru wants to see more skin, so here it is. And she's proud to be a Brazilian global glamazon. Then we had Eva La Queen. She said that she is serving Black Phoenix Rising from the Ashes realness. And this is Eva in her fullest evolution. Then we had Soa de Muse. She said she's giving you some French sensation, and the concept is a French hunter, and the little pants give you some ass too, which looks sexy. Then we had Galabaro. She said she's storming because she's a volcano, because in Mexico they have a lot of volcanoes. Then we had Pythia. She said for the best drag on earth, she's serving you the Greek mythological dog merged with a Canadian Eskimo dog, and she feels so cool. Then we had Vanity Vain. She said she's serving you pop star realness Lady Gaga vibes and also Madonna plus Vanity Vain vibes. Then we had Tessa Testicle. She said she is walking the runway for the final time and she's fully transformed into the monarch, into the queen, into the royal butterfly. And then from the top four we had Alyssa Edwards. She said she's walking this runway as a true southern glamazon pageant queen. Then we had Kitty Scott Claus. She said the best drag on earth is of course Barbie, and she's serving Casey Musgrave's Met Gala realness. Then we had Queen Kong. She said she is serving you pure Polynesian royalty, and the garment has all of her family crests and every little bit of her ancestry is in it. And then finally we had Nehellenia. She said for her runway she wants to wear her favourite colour, and she looks like a princess and feels so beautiful. Overall, I think my favourite look from this was Eva La Queen. I just thought it was such an extravagant outfit and I just loved the colour, loved everything about it. It truly was a finale runway because it had the wow factor, and I think we haven't seen as much from Eva so far, so it was really nice that she got this moment to show the fashion, and I think it shows that she is truly a fashion queen, and I think it would have been so cool if we could have seen a bit more of her because this runway was just so amazing. Okay, so we're now going to quickly go through the Queen's dance and verses that they did for Dance Like the World Is Watching. In general, I will just say I personally didn't really like any of these verses. I don't want to sound overly negative, I just didn't think any of them stood out that much. I don't think it's their fault though necessarily because I don't particularly think the song itself was very catchy compared to some of them that we've had on Drag Race before. I also thought that this video game / TikTok style that they were doing, although it was interesting, I do think it looked a little bit cheap. And I think it kind of distracted, unfortunately, from the verses themselves. So I just wasn't really a fan in general of the arrangement of this song. Also, the verses were so short, a lot shorter than I expected them to be. And I feel like the Queens literally only got a few seconds and then they already moved on to the next person. First up, we had Alyssa. I liked her lyrics. It was very Alyssa. It very much was queen of the party, dancing, and all the things that we know Alyssa to be. So I thought it was fine. Kitty was next, and I also thought Kitty's was fine. It was very much what you'd expect from Kitty. She was going down the more kind of comedy route, which I think is fine because that's what she's known for. Then we had Queen Kong. Again, I thought this was good. It was very much on brand for Queen in terms of what she was talking about. I thought she served some really great dance moves because she is a dancer and she looked really good doing it. And then last was Nehellenia. I thought Nehellenia maybe had the lyrics that maybe were the most interesting because I think it talked more about her as a person and her journey in the competition a little bit. I do think hers was probably my favourite of all of them, but I still didn't particularly think it was that memorable because the song itself I didn't think was that great. But I thought that she did a good job. We then go through the bit where the queens have to say why they think they should win the crown or why drag is so important, and it was pretty much as it usually is. I find this usually a bit of a time filler and a little bit boring, so although they said some interesting and very important things, there's not a huge amount to say about it. They then come back and they vote for Miss Congeniality, and the winner is Soa Demuse. And this is really cool because Soa won the Lip Sync Lollapalooza last episode and she won $50,000 for that. And on this episode, she won Miss Congeniality and won $10,000. So in total, Soa has won $60,000 and she didn't even win the season. So congratulations to Soa because that is a really good amount of money. We then found out that all 4 queens will be lip syncing for the crown. Now, I personally didn't think it was that much of a surprise because they do this quite often. I personally am not a huge fan of them doing it like this where each queen lip syncs on their own and they do the split screen. I would prefer if it was just a top 2 who lip sync. But overall, I thought the lip sync was fine. It was actually quite an interesting song because it was Bad Romance by Lady Gaga, so it was at least a decent song. The queens then come back and we find out that the winner of the season is Alyssa Edwards. So congratulations to Alyssa Edwards, who is the winner of season 1 of Global All Stars. Okay, so let's go through the results of the Have Your Say poll. So question 1 was who had the best song verse? And we had 54.6% for Nehellenia, 25.1% for Alyssa Edwards, 13.8% for Queen Kong, and then Kitty Scott-Claus with 6.5%. As I said, I wasn't a huge fan of the song in general, but that's obviously nothing to do with the Queen's verses. I just didn't like the song itself. As I said though, I did think Nehellenia's was the most interesting, so I would also agree that she had my favourite verse, probably followed by Alyssa because I think it was very Alyssa, it was very on brand, and I think those two probably stood out a little bit more than the others. Question 2 was whose runway outfit was the best? And this was quite split, but we did have a majority of 34.1% for Eva La Queen, followed by Pythia with 21.3%. So overall, there was actually quite a split between them. Although Eva and Pythia got the majority, quite a few of the other queens also got a decent chunk of the votes. I definitely agree though that Eva had my favourite outfit. It was just so regal, so impressive, but also beautiful. The colour was amazing, the execution was amazing. So to me, this look was the most memorable. I also really liked Pythia's though because it was really interesting and quite different to everyone else, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of what Pythia did on her original season with multiple heads and then the smoking out of the one side. And it's a really cool look that I think people are talking about even to this day. So I think Pythia really outdid herself by doing another really interesting look. Question 3 was, do you prefer to select a top 2 to lip sync or do you prefer all 4 finalists to lip sync? And we had 71.1% for final 2 lip sync and then 28.9% for all 4 lip sync. So this was actually a little bit more of a split than I thought there would be. I personally don't like it when all 4 contestants lip sync. I find it really annoying and I also find it kind of distracting, especially because they're lip syncing on their own, so they do the split screen. I think it kind of takes a bit of personality and stakes out of the lip sync. So I personally would prefer if they just did a final 2 because it feels a little bit more real, or they should do what they did in previous seasons and have 2 lip syncs, knock a queen out each one, and then the final 2 are the winners of those lip sync and they then lip sync for the crown. Question 4 was whose lip sync was the best? And we had 49.2% for Nehellenia, 43.2% for Alyssa Edwards, 4.6% for Kitty Scott-Claus, and then 3% for Queen Kong. And I can kind of see why people put Nehellenia just above Alyssa. I think from what they showed, I liked both of them. I thought they both did a good job. I do remember Nehellenia's a tiny bit more because I feel like she also had a slight reveal. But Alyssa, I think, came across maybe the most polished, or at least from the edit, it was shown that way. So I can see why those two got the majorities of the vote. Although it's interesting that this is kind of the other way around because obviously, as we'll get to, Alyssa was the winner, even though she actually got less votes in this than Nehellenia did. Question 5 was, were you surprised by the winner? And this was a pretty landslide result, with no getting 91.7% and yes getting 8.3%. I was not surprised by the winner because, as I mentioned earlier, I do think it was obvious throughout the season, but particularly in this episode, RuPaul was really talking to Alyssa like she was on a different level to the others and was talking to her almost with a lot more reverence perhaps, or respect than the others, or at least from a different perspective, and to me it was quite obvious that Alyssa was going to win. Also, from these Have Your Say polls, we've seen that Alyssa has been pretty popular throughout the season, but also most people thought she was going to win from the start, so I do think this wasn't hugely surprising. But I will say I do think Alyssa did well throughout the season, so she did definitely deserve it, but I think I was more rooting for Nehellenia to win. And that leads us on nicely to the next question, which is question 6, which is who would you have given the crown to? And we had 63.2% for Nehellenia, 30.5% for Alyssa Edwards, 3.8% for Queen Kong, and 2.5% for Kitty Scott-Claus. Again, this isn't that surprising because I think Nehellenia is definitely the fan favourite, and that's been the case pretty much consistently throughout the entire season and on my Have Your Say polls. Alyssa did also get a decent chunk of the votes though, but I do think Nehellenia probably would have, in my opinion, been who I would have chosen, because I think it would be nice to have a non-English speaking queen represent for this season, particularly because there's been so much favouritism towards the English speaking queens. But as I said, I wasn't hugely surprised that Alyssa won, but she still did a good job, so she definitely did deserve it. And then finally, question 7 was, if you had to give Global All-Stars a rating in terms of how much you enjoyed it, what would you rate it? With 1 star being the lowest and 5 star being the highest. And this was pretty interesting because it came out as 2 stars got the most votes with 34.6%, then 3 stars with 31.9%, then it was 1 star with 22.2%, then 4 star with 7.1%, with 5 star only getting 4.2%. And that means that the average rating for this season, according to that, would be 2.37 stars. And this is pretty consistent, I think, with most people not really enjoying this season because of the bad judging or the favoritism. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, there have been a lot of really low reviews on IMDb for the episodes of this, with some of them getting only 2 stars. But overall, the IMDb score currently sits at 3.8 out of 10. So again, it is pretty low, and I think that is also then consistent with this vote having an average rating of 2.37 out of 5. So yeah, overall, although I think it was a really talented cast and I really did enjoy the concept of Global All-Stars and I was really excited for it, I just think that the execution of the season was not very good. And the judging itself, I think, was the big issue, with a lot of favoritism going on or a lot of inconsistent judging. And I think, unfortunately, that is what led to this season being quite unpopular. So from this, it doesn't look like there's going to be another season of Global All-Stars, but we'll have to see. But let me know in the comments if you would like there to be a season 2 of Global All-Stars, and if so, what changes would you like to see implemented to make it better? Okay, so moving on to the comments for this week, and there were quite a lot of comments, as you can imagine. So on Patreon, I had quite a few comments on this. So for example, my Patreon Sue said, "As much as I love Alyssa, I felt that Nehellenia was really the winner. I followed Alyssa since the backroll season. I just feel that Nehellenia was better, especially in the end. I'm happy for Alyssa though." My Patreon Shara said, "It made sense for Alyssa to win. She is such an icon, humble and just incredible. I love Queen and Nehellenia, but the Alyssa win was so well deserved." And on a similar note, my Patreon member Yael said, "I'm very happy Alyssa won. She is a top tier queen. I wished that more non-English made it to the end. It would be nice to have a non-elimination season. I don't understand the hate against Alyssa. It was almost like people were mad because Alyssa was both too good and not doing well enough to win." My Patreon member Jessica said something interesting and said, "The concept has great potential, but for it to truly be a global all-stars, it requires a global perspective with an international judging panel. Vast majority of the judges across all episodes were American, who are less likely to understand different senses of humour or drag styles/concepts from other countries. Even comments from the queens in the workroom or confessionals clearly show that they never bothered to watch the other franchises outside of their own country or their original versions." My Patreon member Betsy said, "I love the concept of the series, but it really did seem that Alyssa was set up to be the star of the show. She was a primary voice in nearly every episode, and so when she was announced the winner, it was no surprise. Sad to see the painfully obvious favoritism at play here." And then on a kind of similar note, my Patreon member Melanie said, "Even though many people said this season was written for Alyssa, I was surprised at her win. I thought RuPaul was going to surprise everyone like always, such as with Roxy in All Stars or when Evie won her season." And in general, I agree with a lot of these comments. I do think that there was a lot of favoritism, and I think there should have been more international judges, because otherwise it kind of felt very American focused. And I do think Alyssa deserved her win, but I was also thinking that perhaps they would give it to Nehellenia just because of the favoritism and everything that's been going on towards the English-speaking queens. But I think from the final edit, it was obvious that Alyssa was going to win. And in terms of the comments from my Have Your Say poll, a lot of it was very similar to what my Patreons had been saying. For example, someone said, "I wanted Nehellenia to win, but I also think Alyssa fully deserved the win. I feel like either way the fans wouldn't be happy." And this is a very good point, because I do think regardless of who won, there would be people who didn't agree with it. I do think that Alyssa was probably the person who from the edit was most likely to win, because she had been doing well, she has a good track record, and she was also popular with both the judges and the fans, so it did kind of make sense from that point of view. And a lot of people also made the same type of comment, saying that they're glad the season is over and that it was no surprise that Alyssa won. And in general, there were also just a lot of comments with people voicing their dissatisfaction about this season. There was also a comment that I thought was quite interesting, and a few people made this observation, and they said, "The song felt like it was forcing for a TikTok dance to go viral online, which is certainly a choice." And I do agree. As I said earlier, I did not like this concept of the TikTok dance thing. I thought it was just distracting, and I also just thought that the song itself was not that interesting or catchy, so I kind of just wish they had done a generic verse, because I also felt like it restricted the queens in terms of what they could do. And so overall, I think the comments were pretty much unanimous in saying that it was not really the best season, but a lot of people were saying that there was an immense amount of talent in the cast, but they were kind of screwed over a little bit in the edit. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Okay, so we're now going to move on to a little bit of drama that happened after the finale, which involves Nehellenia calling out Vanity Vain for some comments that she made. So, as you will know if you've been following my Have Your Say series for Global All Stars, there's been quite a bit of drama this season between the queens, and Nehellenia was one of the main topics of this drama. In a previous video, I mentioned that there had been some drama of an apparent unaired fight in Untucked between Alyssa Edwards and Queen Kong. Someone had said in a Reddit thread that Nehellenia said during an Instagram live that there had been a big fight between Queen and Alyssa because Alyssa had apparently been standing up for Nehellenia after Queen criticised Nehellenia during the makeover challenge. However, it seemed that this rumour of a physical fight may not have been true, and in fact Queen Kong wrote a lengthy social media post afterwards denying that the fight ever happened. And I did talk about this in more detail in a previous video, which I'll link to in the description. However, the general consensus on social media was that there probably was some kind of argument, or at least some kind of tension between the queens, and that it had spilled over onto social media quite a few times throughout the season. And this became even more evident after a recent comment that Vanity Vain made at a viewing party after the finale came out. So a video clip of Vanity from a viewing party was shared online, and it got a lot of traction on social media. In the clip, Vanity is speaking Swedish, but there are English subtitles. I don't speak Swedish, so I can't guarantee that the subtitles are correct, but several people in the comments on Twitter who do speak Swedish said that the subtitles were accurate. So if there are any Swedish speakers watching, please let me know in the comments if the subtitles are correct. I'll play the video clip now, but the main point in the video is that Vanity claims that it was actually Nehellenia who had a big fight with Alyssa in Untucked. And Vanity also says that Nehellenia has, quote, another side to her when the cameras are off.
Håll inte på så, jag säger det som det är direkt. Innan hjärnan har tänkt så kör munnen. Nej, det var faktiskt Alyssa och Nelly som hade ett riktigt jävla bråk. Ja, Nelly, alltså I love her. I love her. Men Nelly har en annan sida när kameran är av. Så jag lämnade det här. Girl? Oh girl. Oh my god.
And as you can imagine, this clip then got a lot of traction on social media. In the comments, some people were defending Nehellenia and saying that Vanity shouldn't be making these types of comments and fueling the hate towards the other queens. However, there were also other people who were saying that perhaps Nehellenia was not the way that she was portrayed on the season, and there might be a reason why she was involved in drama with several queens. Nehellenia then responded to this video clip and retweeted it saying, "So, different viewing party, different version. Vanity, I love you, but how I was different out of cameras. It's a serious question because I would really like to understand how I had such a different side to what has been seen." Shortly after Nehellenia posted this response, the Twitter user who posted the video clip of Vanity deleted the tweet, saying that they never expected it to blow up like that, and they didn't want to fuel any hate towards the queens. This meant that the responses to the posts also got deleted, and I don't believe Vanity ever responded to Nehellenia's post. And in general, the reaction to all of this online was that people were saying that Global All Stars was a messy season, and it's clear that some of the queens may have had some issues with each other. Several of the other queens from the season, such as Soa Demuse and Atina Leakers, have also previously posted about the apparent fights, and so it's not exactly clear what really happened. And it looks doubtful that we'll ever actually find out what really happened. You may also remember that Queen Kong got a lot of backlash a few episodes ago after the comments that she made to Nehellenia in Untucked during the makeover challenge. And Queen had posted on social media saying that she got a lot of abuse online as a result of this, as well as death threats, and she posted a lengthy response about it on social media. Well, Queen has now posted another social media post related to this. So after the finale came out, Queen posted quite a long post where she thanked everyone for their support and said how amazing it was to be on the season. She also addressed the backlash that she has received this season and said, "This storm that I'm going through now will pass, and though I'm standing in it soaking wet, I know, like all things I've been through in my life, I'll embrace the journey and grow to be 10 times stronger." She then followed this up by saying, "My intentions with my journey through the show was never to hurt or upset anyone. It pains me to feel misunderstood in moments seen as I really was delivering the best version of myself I could be at that time, both good and bad. Lessons have been learned and boundaries have been created moving forward." Several other queens commented on Queen Kong's post, such as Alyssa Edwards, who gave a message of support to Queen and said how grateful she was to work alongside her. Soa de Muse also posted a comment in French, which I've translated into English, where she also sent a message of support to Queen. Several other queens such as Vanity Vain, Tessa Testicle and Kitty Scott Claus also left similar comments too, as well as several other Drag Race queens. And this is a great reminder that this is just a TV show at the end of the day, so please keep it civil online and don't send any hate to any of the queens. Just enjoy this drama passively and keep things polite in the comments. So there you go, there was the final Have Your Say video for Global All Stars. Let me know in the comments what your final thoughts on the season were. And if there were to be a season 2 of Global All Stars, which queens would you like to see compete from which countries? And if you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos, please check out my Patreon and consider supporting me. It goes such a long way to helping support my channel and I really appreciate it. And I'll put a link to my Patreon in the description. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreon members who are amazing and support me every month. Thank you so much for being part of my Patreon. I really appreciate it and I really do love my Patreon community. You are all legends. If you liked this video, please remember to like and comment on the video to help tell the algorithm that this is a great video. And make sure you hit the subscribe button because it really does make such a big difference to my channel. Thank you for watching and I hope you'll join me again in future videos. Thank you, bye!